So we'll take a look at the settings of iPad. We can access that right down here through the settings icon. Tap that, and that'll bring up our settings. Along the left-hand side, we'll see all the settings that we have control over. Whichever one is highlighted is the setting that's active right now. You'll see some slider switches. If that slider switch is white, it means that that particular feature is turned off. Once I turn it on, it'll turn to green. Airplane mode is a low power feature that I would use if I was obviously traveling on an airplane. It disables Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, any of those connections. Great for when you need to be in a low power mode to save battery, or you don't want to be interrupted. My Wi-Fi settings are right here. Your Wi-Fi should automatically be configured, so we won't get into too many of those. Bluetooth is on. I use some Bluetooth speakers around. I've got them. You might have a Bluetooth keyboard that you have. Otherwise, you can turn Bluetooth off, and we'll just do that by just sliding here and swiping that green button, turning it right off. And if I turn it on, you'll see that it comes back to green. And here are the Bluetooth accessories that right now it's picking up. There's a keyboard somewhere in the neighborhood that this iPad's picking up, and AirLink might be another iPad someplace. Notifications, those are on a school iPad. We're not going to run into too many notification issues, so I'm not going to worry about going through and changing too many of those. Control Center we looked at from at the bottom where you can swipe that up. Do Not Disturb. Really handy if you're in a faculty meeting or a staff meeting and you don't want those notifications coming in, the text messages coming in. We can turn on Do Not Disturb. I can also set this for a schedule. Turn on Do Not Disturb. And I can schedule this. Let's say that I have my iPad at home and I don't want email notifications at 3 o'clock in the morning. I schedule mine so that every night between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. it automatically goes to Do Not Disturb so that I don't get those late night notifications. General, this is probably the features that you're going to want to know right away, the kinds of things that you'll need to use day to day. Software update, we can just check that. That'll tell me which version of the software that I'm running. Not terribly important. That will automatically update on your school iPads. Siri, you may want to turn Siri on or off, depending on if you want to explore that a little bit. We can turn that off. Turn Siri on. Siri's got some nice features that we'll cover in a different video. Spotlight Search. I personally don't use Spotlight Search very much. That's the feature that we can just type in a phrase or a word and it'll search all apps, web applications, maybe some local interest things. Accessibility features we'll cover more in depth in a later video. Lock rotation, mute, those kinds of things I can also control from the side buttons. The most important one for us, I really think, is our usage settings. If we go into usage, this tells me that I have available 998 megabytes left on this particular iPad. I've used 11.5 gigabytes of this iPad, and there's something called other memory that takes up the other part of that. Usually it's about 4 to 5 gigabytes, so if we're adding that up, that doesn't come to 16 gigabytes. That's that other memory. That's important because if we're shooting video, if we're working with video, if our students are doing video or pictures, that takes up a lot of memory, and we're going to run real short on that quickly. So by looking at Manage Storage, we can see which app or apps are using the most storage on this particular iPad. And right now you can see, in fact, I'm using 6.9 gigabytes for photos and videos. That's a lot. I may want to clean that up at some point. Come back out of usage, go back into general, and you notice I'm just tapping up here. Let me go back and show again. I was in usage. To get back to general, I just tap that general up there and it'll take me back a screen. Auto lock. Right now I have this one set for never because I don't want this to go into sleep mode while I'm talking with you. Usually I set mine for 2 minutes. That way if I step away from the iPad, it'll automatically lock itself down, go to sleep after 2 minutes. Auto lock is on. Restrictions are on. Restrictions usually have a passcode enabled to them. We'll get into that later on. And then lock and unlock, I can turn that switch on or off. date, time, keyboard. Personally, I kind of like to go into the keyboard settings, and auto capitalization, that's great. That's going to auto cap the first letter of a sentence for me. Autocorrect, I find kind of annoying, so I'm going to slide that off. I'm not a great typer and I'm not a great thumb typer, so I usually turn autocorrect off. If you're trying to spell a proper name or an unfamiliar word, a lot of times iOS will just take what you've tried to do and it'll insert what you think it's done, and you come up with a message that's completely different than what you intended. So I turn autocorrect off. Check spelling, enable cap locks, predictive. I also like to turn predictive off. I don't use predictive, but we'll get into that and why it's good for students. Display and brightness settings, I can change my wallpaper. In the background, I can choose new wallpaper. Sounds, passcode, and privacy features. Sounds, that's a good one to change. You may want to come down here when you get a new iPad. You may not want to hear all those click sounds on the keyboard. You may not want to hear all those lock sounds. So I've slid mine off. Those lock sounds and keyboard sounds, we'll just turn those off, and that way we don't hear that tap, tap, tap each time we try typing a letter. So those are just some basic features and settings that you're going to want to be familiar with. We'll get it more in depth later on with those.